Have you ever imagined buying an abandoned mansion and, as you explore its dark corridors, discover that you are not alone? Now imagine that instead of ghosts or ancient secrets, you find something much more unexpected and desperate. That's exactly what happened to Ethan Carter, a millionaire businessman used to turning ruins into real empires. He did not believe in coincidences, much less in drawn destinies. For him, everything in life was a matter of planning and numbers. But on that cold New Orleans morning, as he reviewed financial reports in his luxurious penthouse, a call would change his life forever. "Mr. Carter, I have something that may interest you very much." The voice on the other end of the line was Thomas Reynolds, one of the most renowned real estate agents in the area. He spoke with unusual excitement, as if he were about to reveal a valuable secret. "Tell me something that's really worth it, Thomas." A historic property on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, abandoned for decades, 19th century architecture, with unique details. It's a real find for someone with his vision. Ethan arched his eyebrow. He had acquired old real estate before, but something in the way Thomas spoke piqued his curiosity. "And why hasn't this property been sold yet?" On the other end of the line, there was a brief silence. "Let's say that there are some stories about her. People say they have seen lights on at night and shadows on the windows, but nothing that a practical man like you should worry about." Ethan smiled from the side. He didn't believe in urban legends, but he knew that rumors like this could devalue a property, which meant an excellent business opportunity. "Send the photos. I want to see it with my own eyes." Minutes later, the images arrived at his email. Despite the time and abandonment, the mansion still displayed an undeniable grandeur. Its Gothic towers and broken stained glass windows told silent stories, but something in one of the photos caught his eye. In the attic window, a shadow, small, frail, as if someone were there, watching. He blinked, and the image seemed to change. Would it be a reflex, a trick of the light? There was only one way to find out. "Schedule a visit for this afternoon, Thomas. I want to see this house up close." The clock was 3 in the afternoon when Ethan Carter parked his car in front of the immense property. The winter sun cast long shadows on the tall, unkempt lawn. The dry leaves scattered on the floor danced in the wind, reinforcing the unsettling silence that hung over the mansion. Built in 1872, the residence had been erected by a family that prospered during post-Civil War reconstruction in the United States. For decades, the mansion was the scene of lavish balls and meetings of New Orleans high society, but like so many stories of the past, its glory has crumbled over time. In the 90s, a series of tragedies led her last heirs to abandon her, and since then she has remained forgotten, resisting time like a sleeping giant. Ethan, on the other hand, was not a man guided by sentimentality. For him, each property carried a potential for appreciation, and this mansion was a diamond in the rough, waiting to be cut. As soon as he crossed the rusty iron gates, Thomas Reynolds, the broker, was already waiting for him at the entrance. "Welcome, Mr. Carter. I hope you are prepared for a true architectural treasure." The solid wood door creaked as it was pushed open, revealing a vast hall covered in dust and cobwebs. The French chandeliers, still hanging from the high ceiling, shone faintly under the last rays of sunlight that pierced the broken windows. "The property is solid, despite the abandonment, but it will need a complete makeover," Thomas explained, watching Ethan walk the halls with firm steps. Ethan analyzed every detail. The oak floor was deteriorated, but the stone walls held firm. It was a promising opportunity. However, something bothered him. At the end of the corridor, a narrow staircase led to the upper floor. A cold wind passed through it like a silent warning. Something was different. What he didn't know was that inside that forgotten house was a presence that would change his life forever. Climbing the wooden steps, the businessman felt the weight of silence around him. Each step made the floor creak under his feet, as if the house itself was trying to warn him of something. He had already explored dozens of old properties, but for some reason this mansion evoked a different feeling. It wasn't just abandonment or structural decay. There was something deeper, almost palpable. Upon reaching the second floor, a row of closed doors stretched down the dusty hallway. The smell of mold and aged wood filled the room, but what really caught his eye was a muffled sound, weak, almost imperceptible. A murmur, perhaps a cry. His gaze fixed on the last door on the right. Cautiously, he turned the handle, and the door opened slowly, revealing a small dark room. Next to the broken window, a slight figure was huddled in the corner of the room. A girl. Scared eyes, bare feet, his face marked by dirt and fear. Ethan froze for a moment. The girl shouldn't be there. That mansion had been abandoned for years. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The girl did not respond immediately. His gaze moved between Ethan and the door, as if calculating a possible escape. But then, a movement in his arms made Ethan realize something even more surprising. A baby, wrapped in old blankets, sleeping on his lap. The shock traveled through Ethan's body. Who were those children? What were they doing there? And more importantly, how long had they been surviving alone? "What's your name?" he asked, trying to soften his voice. The girl swallowed hard before answering, almost in a whisper. "Emily. And this is my brother, Noah." The name resounded in the air like an echo of something bigger, something Ethan still didn't understand. At that moment, he realized that his trip to that mansion was not just about business. There was something much deeper going on there, something that would challenge all his convictions. And the scariest thing? Deep down, he felt that none of this was a coincidence. The silence between Ethan and Emily seemed to last forever. The man, accustomed to dealing with numbers and contracts, now found himself facing something that none of his previous investments could prepare him for. The presence of the girl and the baby in that abandoned house raised more questions than answers. Taking a deep breath, Ethan bent down to be at the child's height. Her eyes studied every detail, her disheveled hair, her worn clothes, and the protective way she held the baby. Emily wasn't just hiding there. She was taking care of her brother. "Emily, how long have you been here?" The girl pressed her lips together hesitantly. His eyes ran around the room as if trying to find a way out. But in the face of the quiet steadiness in Ethan's gaze, she finally relented. "Mum said she would come back, but it's been many days." The answer fell like a weight on Ethan's shoulders. Did the mother of these children disappear? What had happened to her? And why did you choose precisely this mansion to leave them? Ethan's mind began to work quickly. He needed to understand the situation before taking any action. He took out his cell phone and entered the number of Oliver Hayes, a longtime friend and private detective. "I need your help. Something strange is happening here." While waiting for the call to return, Ethan decided to inspect the environment. The room was small, but some evidence drew attention. A backpack in the corner, a few packages of cookies almost empty, a half-empty bottle of water, indications that Emily did everything to keep her brother fed. On the floor, near the window, a crumpled piece of paper. Ethan picked it up and carefully unfolded it. It was a letter. The shaky handwriting indicated that it had been written in haste. "If something happens to me, protect my children. They can't fall into the wrong hands." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as he reread those words. What did that woman know? Why did you choose that place to hide your children? And most of all, where was she now? The letter did not bring answers, only more doubts. But one thing was certain: Emily and Noah were in danger. "Emily, did your mother mention anyone? Did she tell you to wait for someone here?" The girl hesitated for a moment, hugging Noah tighter. His eyes showed tiredness, fear, and at the same time, hope. "She just said that if it took long, I should stay hidden, that it was not safe to trust anyone." Ethan took a deep breath. It was becoming more serious than he could have imagined. He needed to act fast. The phone vibrated in his pocket, taking him out of his thoughts. It was Oliver Hayes, the private detective. "Ethan, what happened? You don't usually call me without a good reason. I need you to find a missing woman. She left 2 children behind and did not return." "There's something odd about that, Oliver. There is a card that indicates that she may be in danger." On the other end of the line, the detective was silent for a few seconds. Ethan knew he was processing the information, analyzing every detail before responding. "Send me everything you have. Name, age, any clue. I'm going to start right now." Ethan hung up and looked at Emily again. The girl tried to keep her composure, but he saw clearly that she was exhausted. How many nights had she spent awake, taking care of her brother? How many times have you had to fight against fear and uncertainty? He couldn't just leave them there. "Let's get out of here. You come with me." Emily instinctively retreated. "And where are we going?" Mom said not to trust anyone. Ethan bent down to stand at her height and spoke firmly but softly. "Your mother asked to protect you, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. If she comes back, I'll make sure she finds you safely. But now we need to get out of here. That house is no longer safe." Emily looked at her sleeping brother and then at Ethan. The hesitation was still there, but there was also something new: confidence. Finally, she agreed. Minutes later, Ethan drove through the empty streets of the city with Emily and Noah in the back seat. The girl remained silent, looking out the window while holding the baby's hand. The radio played soft music, but no one seemed to hear it. His phone rang again. It was Oliver. "I have some information. Her name is Claire Donovan. She worked as an accountant at a company called Halverson & Co. The interesting detail, this company is under investigation for money laundering. Ethan squeezed the steering wheel. She discovered something she shouldn't. Everything indicates that it is. I have records that she made several attempts to contact lawyers and journalists before disappearing. It seems that he was trying to expose something. Ethan looked in the rearview mirror. Emily was now dozing off, her head leaning against the glass. What now, Oliver? What do I do? The detective sighed. First, keep the children safe. Then let's find out who is behind it. And if Claire is still alive, we will find it. Ethan felt a different weight inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't just closing a deal, he was fighting for something bigger. The truth, justice. And above all, for the lives of 2 children who should never have gone through this. Before we find out if Claire will be able to meet her children again, leave your like and follow the channel so you don't miss more impactful stories like this. Now, let's go to the most awaited moment. After a while, the tension in the air was almost suffocating as Ethan drove at high speed to the agreed location. The final destination? A train station on the outskirts of the city. Oliver had confirmed minutes earlier. Claire Donovan was alive and waiting, but the risk still existed. If she really knew something that could take down a criminal network, she wasn't just a fugitive, she was a target. In the back seat, Emily held Noah tightly, her small fingers clutching the fabric of the baby's clothes. The silence between them was dense, charged with expectation and fear. "My mother, is it really there?" the girl asked, almost voiceless. Ethan looked in the rearview mirror, choosing his words carefully. "Yes, and we're going to bring it back to you." When they arrived at the station, Oliver was already waiting for them next to a secluded platform. His hands were in the pockets of his coat, but his eyes swept the place closely. And then Ethan saw her, Claire. Messy hair, an exhausted expression, a look lost between anxiety and relief. She looked like someone who had spent a long time on the run, but the flame of determination still burned in her eyes. Emily saw her too. For a second, he stood still. Then he let out a contained sob and fired. "Mommy!" Time seemed to slow down. Claire turned to the sound of her daughter's voice, and as soon as she recognized her, her face broke down in emotion. Emily ran with all her might, ignoring everything around her, until she threw herself into her mother's arms. The impact of the hug almost made them fall, but Claire held her with all the strength she had. Tears rolled down both of their faces as Noah babbled on Ethan's lap, stretching out his little hands to his mother. Ethan approached and, without saying anything, handed the baby to Claire. Her fingers trembled as they picked him up, and as soon as she held him to her chest, a choked cry escaped her lips. "My babies, my babies," he repeated softly, as if he still didn't believe it was real. The moment was so intense that even Oliver looked away, allowing them a moment of privacy. But Ethan knew that danger still lurked. "You are no longer alone. Now we are going to protect them." Claire looked up, staring at him with mixed gratitude and fear. "They won't stop," Ethan nodded. "Neither do we." In that instant, he realized that his life would never be the same again. He didn't just find a house to renovate, he found a purpose. And for the first time, he felt like he was really building something that mattered. Claire's past still needed to be clarified. Those responsible for what happened to her were still at large, but at least for that night, his children were safe, and that was a start. This story shows that some battles are not just individual, they need to be shared. If you liked this report and want to follow more content like this, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any updates.